I always say to people, you can't PowerPoint people to death in the digital space. A lot of people can create pretty PowerPoints, but can you turn that into technology that's going to be valuable? And can you show that to people? And it gives them some of the reason to believe and the inspiration of why we should continue and why it's going to differentiate in a different way than we have innovating for the last 100 years.
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Kevin Doyle. Kevin is the Chief Digital Officer of Ecolab, a global leader in water, hygiene, and infection prevention solutions that earns roughly $15.75 billion in annual revenue. Kevin's been in his role for a bit more than 2 years of his nearly 15 years with the company. In his role, he has the traditional CIO and Chief Digital Officer responsibilities combined and helps lead Ecolab Digital, which provides innovative digital solutions for customers, leveraging IoT devices, apps, broader analytics, and mobile solutions. His team also provides solutions to help the 48,000 Ecolab employees be as effective as they can be. And he's helped lead a digitization of the company's supply chain to boot. I look forward to hearing more about all of the above and more through this conversation. Kevin, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Thanks for having me, Peter. Looking forward to it.
Likewise, I'm looking forward to it as well. Well, Kevin, let's begin with your company, Ecolab. Talk a bit about the business you're in, if you would.
Yeah, I guess from a mission standpoint or, what we represent, we're trying to make the world cleaner, safer, healthier through the products that we provide in water treatment and infection prevention. So touch a lot of different areas, pretty broad base of what we're capable of, but all impactful.
Super interesting. And you were the Chief Digital Officer of the organization, a role you've had for a little more than 2 years out of your more than 14 and a half with the company. Talk a bit about the role of Chief Digital Officer and what's within your purview.
Yeah, really, even I grew up in the IT world in a lot of different roles, started in actually supply chain and more functional roles, but that combination of how we use technology to deliver value became something that we wanted to focus on from how we were going to create value for our customers and differentiate from the ways that we've done it for the last 100 years. We've had a model that's been really successful in creating value for customers, and we wanted to take advantage of the macro trends in digital to create even more. We had lots of data, lots of expertise, and we felt like we could turn that into something. So in my role, I'm really focused on the products that we create that create value for our customers and differentiate that hopefully then create more value for Ecolab. But I also am responsible for the technologies that we give to our more than 27,000 people that are out touching customers every day in sales and service roles to either help them be more productive or to help them create and identify more value for our customers as well. So we do a lot of custom technologies within that. I also have recently taken on responsibility for the digitization of our supply chain. So how are we looking at not only our external customers, but our internal so that we can leverage the technologies? Often is like a plant zero before we go to a customer to validate the offering is going to create the value we expect. So we take advantage of that as well. But that's really my purview today.
A broad one indeed. And I'd love to talk a little bit further about each of the areas you talked about. You mentioned the digital products that you help you and your team work on behalf of the company's customers, I believe under the rubric of the Commercial Digital Solutions group, if I'm not mistaken. Can you talk a bit about the broader mission of that and some examples of the products that you and the team are working on?
Yeah, absolutely. And I might just take this opportunity to say we had a Commercial Digital Solutions group. We had an IT group. We've recently brought that together in an organization called Ecolab Digital. Again, it was to take advantage of all of the technology, wealth of knowledge and capability that we had and really use it to differentiate not only for our internal operations or not only for our customers, but how we can jointly do that and take advantage of all that synergy. So we've recently made that change and created a single organization. And, really still my focus within that is the commercial products and things that we're doing. We're either creating or innovating, and that could be anything from a digital twin concept in a data center or a food retail facility, or it could be kitchen operations with dish machines and AI, or pool systems in the hospitality industry and how those the water performance is measured there. So we do a lot of different things. We have apps that are standalone that are food safety checklists, for example, that we can leverage in the retail environments or many environments. We also have things that predict Legionella in water systems so that we can take care of that before people get sick and potentially even more fatal. So, we really cover a lot of different territories because, again, Ecolab is a very diverse company in the areas that it serves, but we have a base platform that we take all of our data into. We call it Ecolab 3D. That's really our cloud platform that takes all this information in, creates insights from it, and applications that we then present to our customers.
Yeah, and you mentioned that a part of your purview is also making sure your employees have the technology necessary to be productive and productive on behalf of the customers. I think you've told me in the past that 28,000 of the 48,000 employees are out with customers. And so making sure they have the technology they need to be able to serve them well is all the more important. Can you talk a bit more about the way in which you think about helping your colleagues become more productive through the use of what you and your team are working on as well? I imagine a lot of synergies with what you've just described also.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there would be platforms from an enterprise perspective that people would be very familiar with, CRM type tools that people use, field service platforms that our people are using to track and deliver the value at a customer site that we commit to contractually. But what we're trying to do is, again, take advantage of the latest trends in technology, artificial intelligence, and some of these things that are more generative in nature, conversational, that bring our expertise to our customers in a different way, or bring that expertise to our field in a different way so that they can serve customers more effectively. So we're doing things around AI and generative AI for example, and if I give you a little bit of a background on this, in our industrial businesses, in our global water business, a lot of what we do are chemical engineers on site with customers, evaluating systems and identifying opportunities. For those opportunities that we identify, we track those in an application that says, here's the project, alignment with the customer on the value that it creates, the completion of the project, and did it create the value. So we're always able to tell you the value that we're creating for you, but those things are more built around people's individual knowledge. Maybe they're talking to one of those other 28,000 people and they get an idea. What we're trying to do, and what we did do, was take the information from that repository and start to serve it up to our people. If you're in Southeast Asia or Southeast Idaho and you've got a dairy plant that you're serving, you might have ideas that never cross paths. We're now surfacing those to people as opportunities to say, have you considered these things? They've created this value for customers in other places. Take advantage of that. And we're doing similar things. And then the way we service, the way we sell. So it's really, again, taking advantage of more of the technology to provide insights instead of just these tools where our people go in and enter data and then it gives management reporting or other information out there.
I know, Kevin, from our past conversations that you and the team have spent a lot of time determining ways of monetizing digital, and you're kind of alluding to some of those points. And I know that the team has made rather significant progress in that direction. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that philosophically speaking as well. It's a logical extension to what you've described in these past couple of answers, but I'd love to tackle the topic a little bit more directly if you would.
Yeah, we've had a presence in the IoT space for many years out of our global water business, and it came with some monetization. We really built a strategy then around not only our connected devices, but the applications and the services that we're deploying. So as we're deploying new software services, we are using subscription models and trying to really build a base of business from that frankly is already significant. And we're trying to take advantage of the opportunity to scale that technology has that's maybe a little bit different than some of our other offerings. So how do we get those revenue streams doing more for us faster and at broader scale? So we've absolutely been focused on that. We've done a lot around, specifically, like I said, charging for not only the connected device, but also the software and the service, but also understanding things like consumption and where data utilization is, much like our cloud providers charge us for the amount of compute that we use. We're doing similar things for our customers, again, in a different way that represents still the value that we're creating, because all those dollars should go to value and to insights and things that are optimizing operations or water savings or energy savings, waste reduction, whatever those things are. But it's coming to them in a different way through insights than maybe in the historic sense of purely chemicals or equipment or something like that.
Yeah. I want to circle back also to your point about digitizing the supply chain. Supply chains, especially in recent years, have been have captured the imagination of the general public as many of us have had challenges associated with them, especially during the COVID era. And I would imagine that there's been considerable reason to think about how to optimize those and digitize those. Can you talk a little bit about the methods that you have used and some of the progress that you and the team have made in that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of ways that we're looking at our internal operations. Some of those through the applications that we use to run the company today, some of the bigger ERPs or transportation management solutions, whatever, and looking at those from an AI perspective to how to automate and get more insights and recommendations as opposed to maybe some of the information that was in the past and you are more putting it in. But we've also been looking and doing design sessions at the operations levels to understand processes that we might improve quality through vision control or vision AI and things like that to really start to focus our optimization and take real time impact to the solutions and what we're able to automate. So again, a lot of work going on there. And like I said, we support an industrial business today. So a lot of those things that we're trying to take to our customers to optimize water, energy, waste, TCO, operational throughput, whatever it is, we're trying to do that in our own facilities as well. So a lot of those things that we're delivering for customers are custom applications that we're developing based on the 100 years of experience that Ecolab has in its engineering and its R&D, and apply that then to solving our own internal supply chain issues and making them more efficient for customers.
Very interesting. You also talked about the understandably the sanctity of data. That then there's a lot of data that is accumulated. A lot of the opportunities you mentioned in the use of IoT devices and various apps and analytics that you're employing obviously would have data as the fuel and value that you're deriving from this. Talk a bit about your data strategy and how you make good use of the wide array of data that is accumulated across the organization and from your customers.
Yeah, great question. I'll say the beneficiary of some great innovation historically, especially in our water business and in Nalco Water. They had an application called TRASAR and 3D TRASAR that had been developed over the years. It was really measuring a lot of water system information at the time, more centered around scale, microbial, corrosion control within an asset, utility asset, doing water, heating, whatever it is. And so we had all this information, but the data was really not being leveraged. So this was, I want to say 2013, 14, we started this strategy to move to the cloud at that time to take advantage of the elasticity and the availability of all this data, knowing that we had something that was going to be meaningful going into, at the time, big data and IoT and cloud were the fancy buzzwords, and try and take advantage of all those things. So at the same time, we started to collect that data in a cloud repository. After we started the move to the cloud, we created a modern analytics platform where we started to normalize the data in a central repository that we could then use to feed out to any of our services to create new value components, analytics, whatever it is. So created our first analytics organization in the 2015, 2016 timeframe and started hiring and partnering with data science companies and building up a competency there. Again, always to use and leverage that data as a differentiator. For me, the true value in digital is in the intelligence, the AI, the insights, whatever those actions and values. So a lot of those other things that we do and create, whether it's an app or it's an IoT device, is a means of getting the data that we need to complete that story. So from a data strategy standpoint, it's not even just our internal data. There are times we share data with customers because it's more meaningful to their operations when that data is integrated and we can tell a different story that's more personalized to them. We use data from different external sources like Yelp reviews in the hospitality industry or weather data to determine hot, cold, cooling season, whatever it is, and where that might impact an operation where we want to be ready for it. So, again, a lot of the use of data and super important for us as it is for everyone. We understand that, but we feel like we have a great foundation for it and are just continuing to build more.
And you mentioned, for very good reason, artificial intelligence as sort of the next wave of value, or at least a mechanism by which the next wave of value might be derived and is being derived. Talk a little bit more, if you would, about the use of AI, generative AI. I don't know if it expands all the way to agentic AI, but some of the advances or areas of investment that you're making in those areas and the conclusions you're drawing from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got AI that's been embedded. So machine learning from an anomaly detection. I mentioned the Legionella solution we have does predictive Legionella, all built around the data science and AI. And I know that everybody wants to know more about the agentic and the generative, and it's what it's done since really coming to more, I guess, scalability. And we are absolutely trying to leverage that. And what it's ended up helping us do is get to insights much faster than we had in the past. So now our innovation program is really about how do we leverage AI? How do we take the data and insights? What problems are we trying to solve for customers? And then we do a rapid iteration, and that rapid iteration can spin up apps in 2 to 3 days versus 2 to 3 months or longer in a lot of cases to get to maybe some of more of the traditional things. So we're absolutely using agentic AI today to look at internal processes on like order to cash and how we can manage those, but we're also looking at them from how do we serve up the expertise of our chemical engineers in the water space so that they can be more represented at a customer operation 24 hours a day versus what that human can do on their own. So we're giving the agents that kind of knowledge that our field teams have. We're also, through conversational AI, opening up abilities for our customers to ask questions of a knowledge repository that we have that we've built up over time. So they're getting exposed to Ecolab expertise and intelligence in many different ways using those technologies.
Really fantastic. And you talked about the innovation function more generally speaking, Kevin. I'd be curious, how have you staffed that? How do you think about kind of the people that lead those areas? And I'd be curious, how they track trends, and maybe even some examples of those as they look to the future to test the applicability back to an organization like Ecolab.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's maybe not as straightforward as people would think. Like, yes, we have developers, yes, we have AI engineers, we have architects, we have user experience and user interface design people, researchers and designers that can help bring these things to life in ways that really resonate with our users and customers. But we also have the wealth of information that makes our organization strong today. Engineers, 100 years of history and data, R&D department that's continuously innovating and has been bringing the value to the company for that 102 years. So we partner closely with them in more of a pod construct. If I'm trying to solve a water problem, I'll bring a water expert from our R&D team or someone from our field organization who's out dealing with customers or whatever the case may be, someone from marketing, from finance, depending on how we need to bring knowledge together. And then generally we use some form of design thinking process or session where we're then getting a very cross-functional group together, collaborating in a highly engaging, highly energized environment. And then we're doing some rapid prototyping. I always say to people, you can't PowerPoint people to death in the digital space. A lot of people can create pretty PowerPoints, but can you turn that into technology that's going to be valuable? And can you show that to people? And it gives them some of the reason to believe and the inspiration of why we should continue and why it's going to differentiate in a different way than we have innovating for the last 100 years. So it's been really exciting to see that come to life and really a great team that is dedicated to it today.
I also wanted to ask you, Kevin, if I may, anything you've recently read, watched, and or listened to that you would recommend to peers that is particularly struck you?
Again, interesting question. I actually just got recommended the Acquired podcast, which is, so you're nodding your head. You're familiar with this.
Big fan.
The reason why I think it's interesting is it really talks about companies start and where they've either become or what they've become and how they got there. And listen to one. Microsoft is a big partner of ours. The origin story of that, I must have listened to 8 hours of the Microsoft story and how that came to be, and just really maybe opened my eyes to even how young some of them were when that started, and the innovation that they brought and the trial and error, and how they ultimately integrated and created this massive company that's, obviously an iconic brand today. But I also listened to something like the Mars Candy Company and that story and just its origins, and you can just see correlations to innovation and how we're trying to grow as a digital business and those kind of things. So I know it's, I can tell you, yes, I've read some books on the modernization of AI and that kind of stuff, but I've enjoyed the podcast as a listen, just because, it gives you some insights into companies and where they came from.
Yeah, fantastic recommendation. I'm also a big fan of Acquired. And I must say, actually, and this is validation, further validation of the value. I think it's the most recommended here in this question that I pose of a lot of our guests, but for very good reason. So thank you so much for underscoring that from your perspective. And Kevin, thank you so much for a great conversation besides. Really fascinating to hear about some of the changes of late to your organization and your broad set of responsibilities with internal as well as customer-facing implications, the great innovations that you and your team are working on and already delivering on behalf of both sets of constituents. Really, it's been a delight to speak with you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been great to reconnect, Peter, and really enjoyed the conversation as well. It's such an interesting space to work in. It's always changing, not only business models, but the technology and the pace of the technology. So it's really exciting space to see how we can differentiate. So I appreciate you letting me talk about it.
No, very well said. Thank you again.